Well, I hope you guys got a chance to hear last week's Sunday conversation called Seeking Our Father. What was really neat about it was that it was a real group conversation, and there was something really special about it. And I really appreciate everybody having their voice. And I realized so many of you folks that have been listening to my dad for a long, long, long time have a lot to say. You have a lot to offer. And many times it doesn't have anywhere to go. You can't find too many people to have much deep conversations with. I hear this all the time. People listening right now in Boston and in New Jersey and all over the place. They're like, I don't really have anybody. Thank God you guys do that Sunday talk because you are my group. And so as you folks open up and say what's in your heart, you're really helping somebody else as well as helping yourself. And I remember my dad telling me when I was about 19, he said, I want you to do my show. And I was 19 years old. I remember thinking to myself, are you crazy? I'm 19 years old. What have I got to say? Of course, I had nothing to say, maybe. In my mind, I had nothing to say. But when I did the show, he says, it's good for you. It's good for you to do the show. I remember thinking, all right, my attitude towards life is if I'm asked to do something and I'm capable of doing it, why not give it a try? So I went and I did his show in Los Angeles. I had to drive 65 miles to get there. And I sat down and I remember thinking to myself, again, I can remember it clearly. What have I got to offer this world? But what I offered this world was something I didn't expect, which was I met myself there that day. I got to meet the real Alan, the real person that I was becoming. I remember thinking to myself as I was talking along with people and joking with some people saying, I don't know, you're going to have to call back when my dad's here because it was a call-in show. And I remember thinking, I just don't have any experience on that and I don't know. But what came out of it was I met the real me. And I think when you folks speak up here, you're being bold, you're taking a chance, you're saying something that may or may not be correct. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It just may or may not be correct in the moment. But you get a chance to hear yourself say it, to see where it's coming from, because once you've said it, it's out there. And then you have a chance to look at it. It's all of a sudden not boxed up inside. It's out. And you can then either deal with it, you can either agree with it or disagree with it, which is very, very interesting. So the experience of speaking up and saying what's on your mind and in your heart is really important. So last week's show was very interesting to me. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it because I got to hear what's in your hearts. And I got to see a little more of myself too while I was sitting there going, these people have something good to say. And they've not really had a place to say it. And I was at the Mormon church about a year ago, and I went with my friend who's very, very Mormon. He was a bishop in the Mormon church. And I happened to go there on the day where people get up and say something. Once a month, they want you to get up and tell your testimony. And I remember watching all these people get up, and some of them cried, and some of them, said some pretty astute things, and some of them told stories that were kind of just nonsense and didn't mean anything to me. But at the end, they may have a little cry, and then I could see, okay, well, that was a big step for that person. And I remember thinking, this is good. And then my friend nudges me and he goes, get up there and say something. Get up there and say something. And I know I may have told the story before, and I did. I got up there and said something. And it was healthy because I didn't want to. And again, it's back to that. There's a little kid inside of me that's like, no, I don't want to. Leave me alone. And that little kid inside of us is the little kid that doesn't want to be seen, heard, the little spoiled brat. And so when you get up and you speak up and you say something, you reveal yourself, sometimes to your own self. So when I did that radio show for my dad when I was 19, I revealed something to myself. I met the other side of myself. Almost like, who are you? You are in there, aren't you? There is somebody else in there, isn't there? And I remember just thinking to myself, I can never be the same again. I can never be the same again because I now know that I do have a voice. I do have a purpose. I do have something to say, but most of us never say it. So even when something happens in our group and somebody says something that could be considered outlandish or inappropriate or incorrect, including me, it's okay because sometimes you just got to say it and then say, that wasn't right. I didn't really mean that. I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry. Sometimes that just needs to be said. And it doesn't happen unless you say it. So I say it's good. It's good for all of you to speak up. I hear you growing. And I've been doing this now for about 2 years or so, 2.5 years. And I all of a sudden can see each one of you that are in this group and our little group in our small town that emanates out into the world. I can see you growing in different ways, which is really nice. But what I see that is prevalent amongst all of us is doubt. Doubt that I should speak up. Who am I? The same doubt that I had when I was 19. Who am I? What do I have to offer the world? But it isn't what you have to offer the world. It's what God has in you that is supposed to be said to the world. And he uses you if you are willing. If you're a willing subject, he uses you. And sometimes you got to mutter through it and cough and choke and sputter like an old car that hasn't been started up for a long time. And then it's got to just kind of like clear its carburetor out. And then all of a sudden it starts to flow. And it's really nice to see you folks saying what's in your heart. Social media gave people a little bit of a voice for a while, but they could sit quietly and they could hone their message perfectly, which is nice. The written word is much easier to hone and edit and take care of. But when you're sitting with a group of people and you open your heart and you say what's in your heart or on your mind, 2 different places, it's interesting what happens. Because when you say something, it affects him. When he says something, it affects her. And it goes back and forth a little bit like a pinball. But guess what? We all learn something from it. We all walk away with a little extra something. Something magical happens. So as we talk about farming just a little bit, we reap what we sow. And if we never sow anything, if we never sow any seeds of love, of thought, of kindness, of expression of some sort, then you don't really get a chance to reap what comes from it. Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes you sow seeds of thistles and spiny, spiky things grow. And then you need a chance to even see that and go, wow, I planted those seeds of deceit. I planted that. I get what I deserve. I got to fix this. I got to tear these things out and I got to plant some good. And what I've learned recently in my life is the value of overlooking on the spot with calmness, kindness, and patience. Something my dad has told me all my life. But as I'm able to do it in a more meaningful way in my life, I can see that that is kind of the farmer weeding out the little weeds while they're small. Overlooking on the spot, calmness, kindness, and patience. Plucking out the little weeds, plucking them out so they don't grow into big things, because the big things are judgment. If I overlook on the spot with calmness, kindness, and patience, then I'm doing what? I'm not judging on the spot with hatred, anger, and contempt. Those are the seeds that bear the fruit that are thistles and spikes. And we have these things that grow all over our property that have these amazing spikes from hell on them. They're literally the most horrible things in the world, and they grow everywhere, and they grow really fast. And my wife goes out there with this torch, and she torches these things, walking back and forth with this torch, trying to kill the, whatever it is so they won't grow again. But of course they grow again. It's amazing. They're like cockroach. You can't kill them. Goat heads is what they call them, correct. But this is what we are planting when we are not overlooking on the spot with calmness, kindness, and patience. Because what I've realized is in this world right now, you have a lot of haters, okay? If you're not wearing a mask, if you're not vaccinated, you're going to have people that hate you. They don't even know who you are, but because you don't have a mask on your face, they hate you. It's almost like back in the day during World War II when they made the Jews wear the star on the arm. They see the star on the arm, on the patch, they say, Jew, I hate you. They don't know you at all. They just are, you are lumped into this group of people that are disgusting, useless creatures that need to be done away with like the cockroach. I like saying it like that.
During the rise of Adolf Hitler in Germany, he knew that people needed somebody to put the blame on, especially because, they started World War I and then they got into, in any case, and he found the Jews. And even if they would have created somebody, if it wouldn't have been the Jews, it would have been somebody else. That's just the way he worked it. And people fell for it.
This is what's happening right now. The folks that are not vaccinated, that don't wear the mask. Like we went to Costco last night and my wife and I walked in. It was amazing how busy it was on a Saturday night. It was so busy, it was ridiculous. And we got there at like 5 p.m., so it only had a little while to be open. It was so busy, and we walked in and they hand you a mask. And I hang it over my ear and I walk about 10 feet and into the cart it goes. And then my wife, she goes, thank you. And she just puts it right in the cart. And so it's kind of funny. We looked around, but everyone was wearing masks. And she goes, look, everyone is wearing a mask. And I go, no, there's a guy over there. There's one over there. There's one over there. And there was just a few. So I said, okay, so we're just going to go. Nobody said anything, but we got some looks. So what happens is, they are going to try to make us who choose not to wear the mask and who choose not to be vaccinated, we are going to be the reason why they could die. It's kind of the scenario of somebody sees you in the rain without an umbrella and they're saying, you're not wearing an umbrella, so my umbrella won't work, which is insanity, right? But what we're finding out now is that these vaccines, they call them a vaccine. It's really not. It's like an experimental thing that they're putting into people. And I feel, and of course Fabian has been, he's been the guy leading the band, thumping the drum ever since the beginning, looking a little bit crazy for a while, I must admit, because he was so convicted in this that I thought, we're going to wait and see. We're going to wait and see. And all of a sudden we are now seeing that even my own brother who got vaccinated, Michael, he says, I regret getting vaccinated. So there's going to be a lot of people that regret. So then what we have to do is we got to look at, all right, what have we put in our body? We have no idea. So the next move, I believe, for many of us is going to be, you better get healthy. You better really take your minerals, your vitamins, and all these things that you've put off all these years in favor of chips and dip and pizza and beer and all the things that kind of were the feel-good stuff. I got up this morning, and I do it every morning, and I took my apple cider vinegar. I absolutely hate the flavor, the taste, the smell, anything about apple cider. I hate it. It's horrible, but I do it because I know that it's good for me. I put it in about 7 ounces of water. I put 1 ounce. I drink it. I hold my nose and I drink it. And then I have my coffee ready to chase it down. I know it's good for me. I'm taking my minerals. I'm taking all these things to get myself healthy. I'm looking at my life saying, all right, God gave me a long time to play, and I played and played and played and played. But all of a sudden here in these last couple of years, I'm starting to fall down onto my knees, and I'm like, all right, what's going on here? I'm not Superman I thought I was. What's going on? I need to really be serious about it. I really need to be serious about it. So hopefully you guys will join me in this quest to be serious about our health. God wanted me to talk about this body is God's. I'm just inhabiting it while I'm on this journey. This body is God's, and it's my job to take care of it. And I haven't been a real good steward of my body. I've not taken as good a care of it as I can, and I'm sorry, God, for not doing that, and I'm going to do a better job. Starting yesterday. When was the best time to plant a tree? 30 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. That's called repentance. Oh, there you go. Thank you for that. But what's funny is I looked out in my backyard after I heard that from a friend, and I remember going, hey, I planted that tree 37 years ago. And now we have this big, beautiful tree that provides shade for us. And I looked around my property and I go, I planted that one 20 years ago. And I pulled this tree out of there was a car wash that was going to cut it down, and I yanked it out of the ground and planted it in my front yard. And it was 20 some odd years ago. Now it's this big, beautiful tree. And I think that's how we need to be with our lives. We need to make some decisions, plant some of these values, these newfound values in our hearts, and live by them the way we can live by the shade of the tree now. It provides shelter for us. And if you plant fruit trees, they'll provide food for you. So in our lives, we all need to look at how we're living, and we all have had many, many years and decades to look at how we're living. And we need to examine, all right, is it time? Is it time for that reckoning? Is it time that I change my ways? Yes, it is. The answer is always yes. Is how convicted are we? My dad has taught many times that until you have a complete change of heart, you're destined to live that same life. When is that complete change of heart going to happen? For many, it's on our deathbed. But it's never too late, because look at the guy that was on the cross next to Jesus. It's never too late, but let's not wait until that last minute. Let's be good shepherds of our body, our family, and our friends and the people that we interact with in this world, and help to bring others over to that side and that way of thinking. Because right now, our country is literally going to hell in a handbasket. It is amazing. It has yet to be one full year since Trump left office. And we went from a time of plenty when things were growing. It was like springtime. And all of a sudden, we are going into a dark, dark winter, a cold, dark, frozen winter. Supply chains are getting cut off. Food is going to be scarce. The price of it is already up roughly 20% over year. You have to be blind to not see what is happening in our country. The next thing is the feds want to take over the banks. And of course, the guns, if you've bought a gun and you filled out any paperwork at a gun store, that information now is in the hands of the people that want to hurt you with it. Our worst nightmares are coming true. Everything my dad spoke about for the last 50 years is all here right now. So what do we need to do? We need to make some definite changes in our lives. And it starts with this thing that is uttering out these words right now, this mouth. I was thinking this morning, I put these vitamins in my mouth and I put this stinky water in my mouth, this apple cider vinegar, and I swallowed it, and I thought to myself, why does my mouth and my tongue and my taste buds have such control over my body? Why is this tongue of mine, the tongue that forms the words, the tongue that eats the food, the tongue is the mightiest thing. It rules us. It destroys us for what we say out of the mouth, and it kills us for what we put into the mouth. It's amazing. Look how big the body is. This one little orifice has the ability to say and do wicked things on the way out and kill the body that God gave us to carry us on this journey called life. It kills us what we put into this mouth. It's an amazing thought. The fact that I could be so angry at myself for eating food that tastes good. Last night, I'll give you an example. We went to Costco, and I'm always looking for that healthy cookie, right? I mean, who isn't? Am I alone in this? It doesn't exist, Diane says. But I'm always looking, so I found some. Oh, coconut. Coconut, it's got coconut and chocolate, and it's healthy. I'm going to get this. And so before I even got in the car, I whipped that bag open. I beat my wife out to the car because we had 2 carts of food. I whipped that bag and I stood behind the car looking through the tinted windows. I'm just outing myself. And I thought, She says it goes back to the original trauma of my mom with the cookies. So here comes Jan. She's got her whole basket full of good foods and things. She had taken out, what was it you took out of the thing? Cheese puffs. I wanted these healthy cheese puffs. Nope. We fought all through Costco. Nope, get those. Finally, she won because I got the healthy cookies. I did an exchange, got my healthy cookies, got out to the car first, stood behind the car. Remember the little rat? Stood there. Oh, these are good. And I'm eating them as fast as I could before she got here. Here she comes. I'm watching her through the tinted window. She can't see me. Eating these suckers. Because I'm a little kid. It is sad, right? It's so funny. I'm still that little kid inside. He says, I'm now the old man that hasn't been created new in Christ yet. Listen, I'm on a journey like you. I'm on that same journey as everybody else. I am not your guru. Don't try to make me your guru. I will fail you on purpose. So here comes Jan. I must have ate 8 of those little cookies. They're little wafers with chocolate on them. They're delicious. And here comes Jan. So I quickly put them in the back seat of the car. I helped her load all her things. We got in the car. I grabbed the cookies.
You came out back behind the car to unload stuff, and I could tell you were eating something. So I said, oh, what are you eating, those cookies? And he's like, yeah, I do. I just had one. And that was it. And I just, I'm not gonna try to control you. What it is.
So I got in the car, and I had probably I don't know, maybe 8 more. Whatever it was, they're about the size of a wafer, a cracker. Okay, they're not big cookies. Anyway, so I'm telling you this for a reason. I am outing myself purposely because like I said, the spoken word, it's out there now, right?
It says confess your sins one to another so you'll be healed.
See? So I don't know if I'm healed because I'm going to go back and have some more of those cookies, but I got home and I made some chili. I go through the fridge every now and then, and I go, all right, well, this is about to go bad. This is bad, that's bad, but I can fry it up and it'll be okay. And so I had some little smoky weenies. What do they call those little things? Those little smokies. And they were outdated by a year. But I opened them up, and they still smelled good. So I chopped them all up, and I put them in the pan, and I got them going. I had a thing of bacon that was old. I had some ground beef that was white. I don't think ground beef's supposed to be white. It was beginning to turn white. But I threw it in the pan, and I had all these different pans going, and Jan's taking a nap, and I thought, I'm going to make dinner. And so I went through the fridge, and I got rid of everything that was going bad in the fridge. So there was salsa that was a half a thing. I threw it in there. Some old rice from about 3 weeks ago from when we went out to dinner, threw that in there. I opened 4 or 5 cans of beans and chili and stuff, threw that in there. This gigantic pan of stuff, which my kids called Dad's goulash. And then there was some little things in there that were kind of green. I don't know what was that, Jan? That was like some sort of sauce. No, it wasn't mold. It was sauce that was really spicy, Peruvian something or other, and I threw that in there, and I make the witch's brew. And it was bubbling, and I was kind of afraid to taste it, and I finally did. It was actually kind of good. And then I cleaned up the whole kitchen. I had this giant bubbling pot of witch's brew that had bacon, it had ground beef, it had everything under the sun that was in there, black beans and red style beans. Anyway, so now I put that on top of those 18 cookies I ate, all right, maybe 20. And let me tell you that last night I was in the cauldron of the witch's hell. My stomach was doing the same kind of bubbling and popping as the pan. And I tell you, I thought to myself, what have I done to myself? But I took all kinds of things, charcoal and pancreatin and enzymes and 2 or 3 enzymes, and I killed it off, and I made it to here. So thankfully I'm here. Anybody want to come over for a bowl of this stew? It's a huge amount of stew left if you want some. But I will finish eating that. The point that I'm making is that...
Wait a minute. You made this stuff, it made you sick, and now you're inviting us over to eat it.
Okay, he likes to make it sound really, really bad. That's part of the thing. I know what was in there and a lot of that. It wasn't bad. But It wasn't the chili, it was the cookies. It was the cookies and then the chili on top. That was the problem. Because I ate some of it, I had no problem, but it was the cookie. It was the combination.
So I do have pictures of her eating it just in case she died. So she had a couple of little bowls of it. And right, the bad food combination is the point that I was trying to make, is that, and this is why this morning I thought to myself, I was so sick last night, yet I started looking for that bag of cookies. I'm like, where'd I put those cookies? I thought to myself, why does this mouth want to kill me? Why does this mouth that God gave me to eat thoughtfully to keep this machine alive? And then my brother-in-law came over and he was talking about his engine and what oil should he use. And it was like, oh my gosh, my body's a machine. I wouldn't put all this garbage in the engine. It would destroy it. I have enough common sense to know to not put the wrong oil or mix things improperly in my engine, but I do it to my body, and I do it over and over and over and over again. And I think, I wonder why I'm so fat. I wonder why I have stomach problems. I wonder why I got arthritis and all the things that people get. I wonder why. Well, you should know why. Would you feed your horse cupcakes? No, you would kill the horse. All the horse wants is a flake of hay and to be set out into the field so he can eat the grass. He doesn't want all these things. He doesn't desire all these things. But if you give him that bag of grain and he goes, oh, that's good, what'll he do? He'll eat it until he kills himself. He'll absolutely overdose on, that sweet grain that they give him. And so we do the same thing, but we don't have the sense that God gave a mouse. And so I outed myself. I want to use better sense. I want to start living a better life. And it starts with every little thing. Not only what you put in your mouth, not only what you put in your head and through your ears, not only what you allow to go through your eyes into your mind, but what you put into your mouth as well and what comes out of your mouth. So that is took a long time to get there. But what you feed yourself is not just the food. And we've been talking about that, Bo, who I've been hanging out with. We've been working together on a lot of different projects. And he looks at me like I'm kind of a knucklehead, and I look like him like he's a knucklehead. And we laugh and joke with each other all day long about life and the funny things about life, about what we eat and what we think and how we have conversations with people. And we went to breakfast the other day. It was right after Veterans Day. And there was a veteran. He had a veteran's hat on, and he was sitting there with his two little grandchildren playing with it. It was the cutest thing. He was a guy not probably much older than me, maybe in his late 60s. He was probably in Vietnam. I think his cap said Vietnam. And Bo says, I'm going to buy his lunch. And I said, that's sweet. And so we ended up buying his lunch, not saying it to him. When the man found out, he started crying. We didn't say anything. The waitress said, he says, can I get my bill? And the waitress said, oh, somebody paid for your lunch. He started crying. And his little grandkids that were probably 7 and 8 years old said, why are you crying, Grandpa? And it was the cutest, most beautiful thing you could imagine. The little grandchildren seeing their grandpa crying, because we all feel so alone. And the veterans feel so alone. They actually feel like they're wearing that star on the arm like the Jews did. They feel like they're persecuted today in this world because they stood up for what America was supposed to mean and stand for, right? Justice for all and the pursuit of joy and happiness in our lives and the freedom that we had. They stood up for that. And today, they're abused. So this guy cried. And both of us, Bo and I commend you, Bo, for even having that idea. We stood up and we just said, hey, just want to thank you for your service. And then the man, of course, figured, well, you guys must have been the ones that paid. And he cried and he says, God bless you. I love you guys. Thank you. And it was just so cute. I don't even know how to describe it. It was so sweet. I'm going to hand the mic to Bo because maybe you give your impression too.
Well, yeah, the gentleman walked in and I was like, I'm going to buy this. He's all going to eat by himself. So I'm like, I figured I got $45 in my pocket, legitimately $45. And I'm like, I'll buy this guy's lunch. And well, then I see some kids come in. I'm like, oh, it's going to be a whole family. There's no way I'm going to be able to pay for this. But God's still like, the small, still voice is what told me that I need to pay for this lunch. And I'm going to be obedient to that voice, the Holy Spirit leading me to do so. So then it's just him and his kids, and man, I was just moved. You know, I miss my children often, and I just loved to watch them sitting there play I Spy, and they were just having a great time and fellowshipping and having lunch. Well, so I asked the waitress, I said, well, can I have his bill? Well, she brings not only his bill, but our bill as well. So now it's like $90. And I'm like, oh Lord, I do not have $90 in my, you know, and Alan obviously picked up on that or something. He's like, I got it. Let me pay for it. So now we both got a share in the blessing of giving, and it involved all of us, which was great. And it always makes a way, like God already knew that I wasn't going to have enough money to pay for both the bills, but he knew that you would have the heart and the change to do so. And it was definitely a wonderful blessing, I think, for everyone that was involved, including the waitress. Just these things is just, we can't see the ripple effect and how they spread. And that's really what we're here to do, is to spread that love, life, and the light to the world that's just in so much darkness right now.
So I think, you know, it is important for us to get out into the world, speak up, move or respond, yes, to that small, still voice that shows you what you should do.
Well, I was going to say on Veterans Day, I always go to lunch with my son's father-in-law. Both of us are veterans. And, Bo, I am a veteran. Anyhow, so we go to the Sizzler, and we're in line, and I get up to the girl, and no mask. He had a mask on, and she says, and she slides me a mask. And I said, I don't wear masks. And looked her in the eye. And I said, look around. Nobody in the place has a mask on. They're walking around the salad bar. And I'm thinking, you know, I was in the service, and I was no hero, or I just did my job for 4 years. And with the thought of you're fighting for freedom or whatever, and we didn't do any fighting except over on the beach. I said, here I am, Veterans Day, and so she says, well, you'll have to leave. So I left. And then we went over to the train depot. Nobody had a mask, including the cooks, the waitresses, independent, see.
You know, isn't that sad? Isn't that sad?
So I had to pay for him and me because he would have had a free.
The Sizzler was a free lunch, right?
It was a free lunch. They were gracious enough to offer that to veterans, but I just couldn't abide it. So I went, and it cost me $40 for lunch.
Well, you know what? You bought your freedom, and that's worth it. In other words, are you the guy that will, okay, I'll bend to your ways for a free lunch?
When you're closer to God, you feel unworthy because you see how you are. But that is how there's nobody who's worthy. If you feel worthy, you're believing a lie.
You know what's funny about that is there's two sides of that. In other words, we are worthy because God created us, and because of that, we're worthy. That doesn't mean we get high on it, because the other side of saying I'm worthy is arrogance, pride. And that's the altar God, the other God, saying you are a God too, the God maker. We talked about that a little bit last week. And so the worthiness is just understanding that we are God's children. God wants for us more than we even want for our own selves. We have to be willing to accept his gift. That's when I say worthy. In other words, I'm worthy because God created me. He wants for me something that is greater than I even know. And if I'm humble, then I will accept his gift. Because a lot of people actually have a hard time accepting praise and or a gift because they do it with the wrong spirit. They get high on it.
But we're all like the prodigal son who spent his inheritance on wine, wind, and song. And then he thought that, you know, he's living in hell, basically, that his father's servants live better. And he'll become a servant. And that's really the first step for us sinners, is to become a servant.
I absolutely agree with that. But imagine if that kid didn't have the wherewithal to want to go home to his father, right, because he felt unworthy.
Because on his journey there, he felt all the shame of his life. Yeah. And that's basically the repentance. Yeah. And then his father came halfway and met him.
No, it's a good point.
I went to the herb shop because I buy vitamins there and stuff, and I saw this bicycle, and it appealed to me. And I thought, is this just a drawing or something? You can win it? And I said, yes. I said, right, what do you do? You put your name in and all that stuff. And I went back to California because my dad died in July. And all of a sudden I got this call from the lady that owns the herb shop. She says, could you please call me? I said, okay. Called her back. She says, you just won the bicycle. I said, she goes, and we picked you out first, so you get the first pick. You want the blue one or the black one? I said, I don't want the blue one. I said, and so the thing is about this bicycle, I was in California, so I couldn't have access to have it delivered. But the lady that I'm staying with right now, she says, well, just have my brother Michael pick it up and we'll bring it and we'll store it. I said, okay. When I got over there, I tried to ride that thing and I fell. And I bruised myself up, got scraped up and everything. And then I tried it again, and God didn't let me do that. The tire exploded. And Michael went out there, he goes, hey, what happened? What's going on? I go, I don't know, the tire just exploded. And I said, I don't think I'm supposed to have this bicycle. So I took it to a yard sale, and I sold it, and somebody got blessed with a bicycle for my blessing.
Well, it's interesting how life works, isn't it?
Just back on what you were saying about the prodigal son, it said that he had that epiphany moment where he came to himself, where he understood who the Father was and who he was. And he wanted to go back to the Father, but then didn't feel like he was worthy. And he wasn't, because none of us are. But we're righteous because we're righteous in Christ, not because of anything that we can do, but because of what Christ did for us. And so I love that story of the prodigal son, that not only did he see him from far off because he knew he was coming home, he ran to him and he put on his robe and he killed the fatted calf and they had a huge party because he came home. And that's what he does for us when we come home to the Father.
What's interesting about that story too is you have to think, did that son, the prodigal son, become arrogant after coming home and have his father adorn him, or did he stay humble? Maybe his lesson in life, that he had to go out and squander all his money and go through the trials and tribulations of realizing that he was foolish. Was that enough to temper him so that he would become a better human being, even though his father was happy to see him? Because what happens is, I think a lot of times we'll do something and then somebody is so excited to see us, or so excited that we have finally seen ourselves, that we go, oh, okay, well, all right, well, it's all forgiven now. I'll just go back to my old way of life. So that it's kind of like a double-edged sword. We have to be very careful. Humility is so important in all this.
The farther away from you get to God, the more pain you end up suffering. And it's like the story of forgiving the debts. Remember, Jesus said, who do you think appreciates it more, the guy that owes just a few dollars or the guy that owes a whole bunch of money? And that's why I think the prodigal son story is, sometimes we have to be convinced that we want to go the wrong way. And the more conviction that we have going the wrong way, it seems like the more we appreciate the forgiveness when we turn around and go back the other way.
It's funny because my children, as I have now adult children, the youngest is 22 and the oldest is 34. And I didn't want my kids to make mistakes. Anybody else understand how that feels with your children? You don't want them to make mistakes, but you cannot deny them the right to be wrong. You cannot deny it. You can't force them to be right. You can't put them in a cage and keep them children. They have to go out. They must go out and make mistakes. They will. Even if they have the best father, like me. I had the best father, right? Look at me. I'm a mess. Look at my family. We all are imperfect people, just like the rest of the people. And we had a great father, a great example. We've got to go out and find the path. Narrow is the path and few will find it. But we've got to go out and seek the Father the same way that everybody else does. So why then do we try to keep our children from making mistakes? So I remember watching my kids and I remember going, the first one, it was really tough. I'm like, no, over my dead body. And oh my gosh, that backfired. It just backfired. And then I let go of a little bit of my will. And then the next one, it was like, all right, a little bit less will. Let's see how this works. Sadly, we're like doctors. We're always practicing. I'm practicing on my kids now. And the next one, okay, that worked a little better. And then the third one, it's like, oh, here he goes. He's going off. No, over my dead body again. Here comes the will. And that didn't work. So, then he, of course, runs off and does his own thing. And now on the fourth one, fortunately, I haven't had to have any of that yet because he's only 22, but it's coming. I'm guarantee it's coming. But I look at my children and I go, all right, I now just have to learn how to let go and let God and stop being so willful. Tell them what I see without the will, which is the hardest thing in the world because you want to literally, like a spike into a vampire's heart. You want to put that truth into them and kill the evil in them. The problem is you won't. You'll just kill them. So you've got to give them the truth without the will, without the ego, without the pride, without anything, just love. You've got to give them the truth with love and then stand back. And then guess what happens? The love inside of them meets you there. It comes up and it starts to see the truth. So that's the hardest lesson I've had to learn, is not being willful with my children, not pushing my will and my way on them.
What I was going to say is that we can't live in a plastic bubble. We're made to learn from our mistakes and from our suffering. Most lessons we learned was from that. And so I made a lot of mistakes, but I'm learning, and that's a good thing.
That's right. That is a good thing.
And children, especially, when they're young and even not when they're young, they follow example, right? So they're looking how you live. Do you emanate that love, no matter what you say? I know when I was little, there was very little of that. I think a lot of kids, if they just even had a father that stopped them, of going overboard, that would make a huge difference.
Do you think, your dad talked about the hypnotic states of America? That's just like what's happening. This is all hypnotic. It's made for us to believe the lie.
So she's talking about, if you're just hearing this for the first time, is the book called The Hypnotic States of Americans. And it's available at FHU.com. And it's a spiritual survival manual for all families in America. My dad saw all this. He could see it coming because he was a very clear-thinking individual. And as we become clear-thinking, self-motivating individuals, we see it very clearly, and we don't even have to doubt it. We don't have any doubt whatsoever. It's like, yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy. But you have to realize that people are walking in that hypnotic state, that zombie state, through their whole lives. And you have to take pity. I don't know whether pity is the right word. You have to have empathy on them, because if you judge them back, you cannot help them. You cannot help them. And so it really is, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you live your life, everything will either help somebody or it will push somebody away. So,
and you give them reason to judge you. You reinforce their wrong judgment.
I think that when you don't judge them, you're like spreading a light on, and maybe they'll start questioning what exactly they're doing and seeing if that's right or not, because they're not thinking for themselves. We know that.
So I did a radio show yesterday in San Jose on KSCO. It reaches into San Jose. Santa Cruz is where it actually is, but you're right. Monterey, all the way Silicon Valley. And Michael Zwirling owns this radio station there, who's been listening to my father for years and years and years. And he's had my father on his radio show. It's called The Saturday Special. And it's KSCO, the radio station. And it's in a very liberal part of California, Silicon Valley. And we talked about all the same things we're talking about right here. And let me tell you, the phones lit off the hook. Everybody that called in, with the exception of one person, absolutely agreed with everything we were saying about this vaccine being an experimental thing. I'm not going to take it. Everybody was very vocal about it. There are more people out there that are awake to this than the media will ever allow you to know. The reason why I started this conversation talking about it's important for us to speak up and to speak our hearts and to speak our minds with everybody, in a grocery store, in an elevator. I remember thinking to my dad, I've told you guys this, everywhere we went. And if we were in an elevator, you know, they call it the elevator pitch. My dad gave his elevator pitch everywhere he went. And then we'd step out on the 4th floor. But Dad, we're going to 7. It's okay. This man wants to talk. He took every opportunity in his life to speak to people. And even if he was going to be late for his next meeting, he would take a moment of time to talk to somebody that was interested. And it all started out with some little innocent, sweet comment or some silly, funny comment that somebody may comment back to. And then he would say, oh, but yes, but this. And it was my dad's way of almost fishing. He was a fisher of men. He was fishing to see who's there, who's awake. And if we're like that in our lives, then you never know how you're going to touch humanity. It's called the ripple effect. But sadly, we sit quietly, too many of us. We don't open our mouths. We sit inside and judge silently. I think to myself, you know, just like I outed myself about these cookies, I don't mind outing myself. I'm silly. I'm dumb sometimes with these cookies, things I eat. But guess what? Next time I go grab that bag, I'm going to go, oh, don't you be a hypocrite. You know what I'm saying? And I won't give him my dog because it would kill the dog. So I can't waste them. And sadly, I've actually had to throw things out. Do you know it's like a smoker pouring a pack of cigarettes into the toilet or an alcoholic pouring the bottle down the toilet? It's like, it's such a waste. I'm going to just drink it. And then I won't buy another one. And sure enough, he ends up buying another one. But sometimes you just gotta out yourself. It actually feels good, believe it or not.
And it helps a lot, too, in objectivity, because when you speak what you see, honestly, you know, there's a tendency for the mind, the evil in the mind so it'll create a scenario in your mind. But when you're honest and you're brave, you know, I don't think I'm brave, but then there's a less tendency for that to happen because it will provide drama in a scenario as though you're doing it, but it's false, it's fake. So there's a freedom from that the more real you are.
So I'll say something to you, Fabian. Your voice is very familiar to many people that listen to this talk. And there was a time when you saw this injustice. It was about a year or so ago. And you saw it pretty much right away, but you got angry at it. And when you got angry at it, your anger poisoned your ability to deliver that message. If you get rid of the anger, then the message flows from a different place. And you notice how you and I now have a different relationship. I talk back and forth to you constantly. I'm sending you things, you're sending me things, because you got rid of that anger. The anger is the poison to the message.
And to be honest, like I was going back and forth with Michael, your brother, and Michael pointed it out. And, you know, he was sending me crazy stuff too. But, you know, I was objective enough to see when he said, you know, I was being angry. I said, yeah, that's right. Boom. That's it. That's it. Just acknowledge it. And that's it.
It really is that easy, although it's not that easy when you're in that moment. But you have to be honest with yourself enough to be able to say, is there anger there? Are these cookies going to kill me? Or is there anger there? It's all kind of the same stuff. You make excuses for it. If you make an excuse for it, it will continue doing what its job is, to take you down, whether it be the cookies or the anger.
It dulls your perception too. And yeah, it dulls the message, but it messes up what you're seeing too. You know?
It doesn't actually dull the message. It poisons the message.
Anger and fear, right? Fight or flight. You're not thinking clearly at all, and that's the whole point of what's going on and why the media exists, why the food, why everything is all about putting you in a fight or flight mode, because then you're making horrible decisions, very destructive decisions. That's the whole point. So anger is the fight, fear is the flight.
I was going to say is that's the fuel that you give it. So it's just like, you know, when you start a fire, you got to put the lighter fluid and you add that. You got the fire.
The fear and the anger, I mean, I see that the fear usually is a result of the anger because it creates that fear.
So I had an incident this week where one of my customers left a bad review for me on Yelp. I was so angry because I was willing to go back and make it right. And I'm thinking now I'm probably just going to send her money back because if I make a mistake, I'm honorable that way. And yet she just wanted to blame me. And I told her on the phone when we were talking, I said, blaming me is not going to resolve anything. She said, my TV screen turned blue and it was fine before you got here. And I figured she pushed the wrong button. She's blaming me. It's 8 o'clock at night she's calling me, by the way. And so I said, I'll call you tomorrow. So I go on this rating site, and there was this nasty review. I got on her phone. I had a good thing a friend was there watching me make the call, because I toned it down what I really wanted to do. I've got a history of really yelling and screaming, and it usually leaves me feeling awful afterward. But, in hindsight, I'm probably just going to send her money back with an apology that I'm sorry I couldn't please her. I make mistakes. That's part of the industry. You make mistakes sometimes, whether you like it or not. Anybody in the crafts type business will know that. You're always going to make some goof. But some people just want to rake you over the coals. But the thing is, I realize as I'm listening to everybody here, that probably, I'm not going to tell you I feel this great warmth for the woman, because that would be a lie. But at the same time, I realize I probably should just say, look, I'm sorry, here's your money back. And that might make her think. There's a part of me that doesn't want to do that. I want to rake her over the coals just like she did me. So I see the challenge.
That brings up something that, Bruce, we talked about last week, when somebody did something to you, and I don't know if this was on the actual recording, but I said, did you ever call the person and try to, and you said, no, because I wanted to judge them or something like that. I'll finish first and you can respond. But this lady wasn't really seeking a solution. She was very comfortable being angry at you. And you'll see a lot of times people actually don't want a solution. And it's very frustrating because they're not giving you the chance to make it right. And so that is wrong to do. And that's what you're feeling. You're feeling denied the opportunity to make it right. And it's not right. Hopefully on Yelp, you can respond and say, I did everything I could to try to help this lady. You should put your response there.
No response possible.
Oh, you can't do that on Yelp?
No.
I'm surprised there's no opportunity for the person to respond, because you could just have people saying libelous things. I'm going to give this to Bruce.
That incident happened 10 years ago.
Right.
And so it came up last weekend for me to see. And so what I'm seeing is that situations in my past are coming up, so me to deal with correctly in the present.
The bottom line of what I was bringing up, I realized that there's a possibility that if I'm gentle in the way I respond to her, she might have been having a bad day, or who knows. I'm guessing probably the best response is send her money back with just a non-venomous apology. It goes against that part of me that wants to get angry and blame, and throw back the same evil. But I mean, that's often a challenge. I've been through that numerous times where, you have a blowout with somebody and you want to get back, and you have to kind of deny that part of yourself, I guess. And, there's a challenge for me to overcome that self that wants to get revenge. It's an ongoing battle.
You might be better off to deal with this woman directly instead of giving your money back, or give your money back in person. Because there's some lesson you need to learn here. Because any time in my life where I come with an uncomfortable situation, it's something I need to learn.
You could leave her another message and say, listen, I'm sorry I got a little upset when I saw your review. I'd be happy to come back and see if I can fix the problem. And if I can't, I'll give you your money back.
A lot of people here in this audience have been in business for themselves. And we don't have to tell you, there's some people, there's no way that you can please them, no matter what you do, There's the old joke about, we could kill the salesman and everything. Would that make you happy? No.
I used to be in business for myself, and there's some people, no matter what you do, you cannot do it right. And there's other people, no matter what you do it perfect. And it's just their perception. It's not what you're doing. And so I came to the conclusion is I'll do the right thing. If they appreciate it, they appreciate it. They don't, they don't. It's not up to me how they respond.
There's a verse in the Bible that says, as far as it is to us, live at peace with all men, with all people. And we just have to do our part. It doesn't, I can't make someone else do or not do something. But if you're doing your part, if we're doing our part, that's all that we can do. And my question is also to you is, so if you know that that's something that you've been struggling with, your whole life, there might be some rooted circumstance or something that maybe is unresolved in your past. I have no idea. I could completely be wrong. But if you maybe can figure that part out, because maybe it'll help with all the future things. I don't know if you responded to the woman after the review or before the review? After is what he responded. What I first heard when she called you at 8:00 at night and her screen was blue was that she was wanting to watch something on TV and she needed it fixed right then. So she was like living in this, like, this is my emergency and I need you to take care of it right now. And so we can't, like I think Bo said yesterday, you know, I can't make someone else's emergency it's not my emergency because it's your emergency, but I'm going to try to fix it and do everything that I can if it was my fault or my responsibility. Yeah, I'm going to let you just answer that question.
She kept going on and on that evening, and I had guests that just walked in, and I thought, you know, I want to deal with this tomorrow. I said, I'll call you tomorrow, and I honor what I do. She seemed happy at that. So when I saw that review the next night, I didn't realize she'd put a review. I just blew up, you know, and I thought, but you know what? I was kind of irritable that she called me at that hour and kept going on. And so maybe if my attitude had been a little more gentle, it wouldn't have come to that.
I always think, too, that more communication and more information is better than not. So even like for me, if I was on the other end of that call and I was the woman, that if I would have known you had guests just come over and you had another appointment that information to me is like, oh, like I have now reconciled that he's busy and so he can't come over, but he wants to make it right and we'll do it tomorrow. So I always think more communication is better so it doesn't leave us open to like assuming whatever we're assuming is like, I can't believe that guy is like just sitting, he doesn't even care, you know, just going places like that. So
what's the most important part is not how she responds or it's how you deal with it. Right. How I deal with it. So if there's resentment there and anger and you're out of control, that's what you really need to look at and not what she's doing or whether she's destroying your business or whatever. These situations are what really makes your life. But when you're still and you only see yourself and face that guilt without running from it or without resenting it, there's growth there.
One quick comment. I get the same rage when tax time comes around. And I just wondered, how do you get past that one?
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say is it sounds like that is the spirit that you're dealing with just all the time. So it doesn't take much for somebody to trigger that in you. So like she said, there's probably something really still deeply unresolved that's underneath there.
Guaranteed.
Right. But from so long ago, you thinking it's all what people are doing today, but it's something that's buried, that's unresolved.
It's actually a blessing. This is what I realized late in life, that these situations, even though they're painful or unpleasant, it's a blessing that you get an opportunity to see how you failed all your life right now. And that's where the healing comes, when you see it and not try to fix it.
This is like a therapy session. I'm telling you, it's really good. It's so funny. I'll out myself again because this is a good example. We allow things to get in us through these little strange openings, like wormholes. In this case, you would never suspect that Dave would be even capable of yelling at somebody because Dave is such a gentle, meek, mild-mannered guy. But right below the surface is this volcanic rage, you know? And you kind of outed yourself a little bit, which is good because now you outed it. You have to face it. You are facing yourself in that moment. For me, I see these little things sooner, okay? And that to me is, for me, I should say, is a key to my consciousness is rising, because it used to be that I could withstand quite a bit of aggravation on the outside and not show anybody, not let anybody see that I'm pissed off, that I am angry like Dave, like you, and walk down the street and people would look at me and, oh, there's a nice man. But underneath was something pissing me off. It's like, so we see that with you today. Obviously, you're angry at this woman because it's unjust what she did. You were willing to take care of it. You told her you were willing to take care of it, but still, she's put this scar on your face for social media, okay? So for me, this example comes as I'm seeing when I get angry at something, like Fabian said, in this case, The boat is sinking. Okay, the boat is sinking. The woman puts a bad review. Okay, she put a bad review. It's not life and death. Your business will go on. Your life will go on. You are not dying because she has not cut your jugular vein with that bad review. But see, you want to have the perfect, like we all do, we want to be seen to be as good as humanly possible in the world. But you know what? Just let it be what it is. That's fine. But I'll give you an example of the reaction. My wife, as much as I love her, she does things all the time that I want to just kill her over. Okay? And you're going to laugh about this, but I'll tell you. She likes to steam her shirts. And so she has this little steamer. And
worthy of killing?
oh, yes. That's what I'm telling. That's why it's funny, because like Dave said, we're all laughing at Dave because who cares? It's a bad review. Who cares? But you said in your mind, you want to kill her. You know what I mean? Not really. And obviously I don't want to kill my wife. But so here's the example. When she's done steaming her shirt, she puts the hanger on my light fixture. Now, 3 feet away is her light fixture. And I have told her, please don't put the hanger on my light fixture. But if you're going to do your shirt, do it on your light fixture. It's on, because, we have this bathroom this is funny, silly stuff. But the other day I walked in and I go, there it is again. The hanger's on the light fixture. I'm going to get her this time. It's like, think about that, right? And I looked at that. It's like a one-celled organism. Have you ever seen SpongeBob? SpongeBob SquarePants, and there's a one-celled organism that's evil in this cartoon. And this little one-celled organism that's inside of all of us, that's this anger thing. So I looked at this stupid thing hanging there, and I looked at the reaction to it, and I laughed. I went, oh my gosh. Isn't it crazy how the littlest things is a doorway to hell when you allow it? When you allow it to enter in, as small as a hanger on a light fixture, who cares? The devil cares, because he wants to get in you however he can. So he'll do little aggravating things. He'll allow you to get aggravated at them, or you allow yourself. And then that's the doorway to hell. And then what happens is there's a division between me and my wife. So what I did was I removed her light fixture off the wall, threw it in the trash. No, I'm joking. I didn't. I just hung the hanger on her light fixture. And I'm sure she knew, because she left it on my light fixture, and she knows I've asked her a bunch of times, but I just didn't get angry at it. The key here is to look, no matter what it is, look at the anger and just say, not today, Satan. Not today, Satan.
Yeah, and the little things mount up to rage and hate. Those little irritations, people tend to overlook them, but they matter.
They sure do matter.
It's those little things that you don't deal with properly lock you into your hypnotic state that trip you up all your life.
That's exactly right. You have any excuses to make, wife?
I'm so sorry. I do that occasionally because there's too much stuff on my thing. So I will do it over there, and I'll forget to take the hanger off. So I'm really sorry about that. No, what I was going to say about resentment and anger, when we are small, we are powerless. And because we're powerless, all we have is our anger. But when we grow up, we still feel like we're powerless, and we don't realize we can actually look for solutions to these problems, but we're stuck in that mode that we got in as a child, thinking, well, we can't change it, there's nothing we can do, rah, rah, rah. But part of growing up is realizing I can find solutions to things. I can work things out rather than just be stuck in that reaction of when I was powerless.
People tend, me included, they tend to think that the anger is power. They feel that that's power. It's the opposite.
I guess the reason why this conversation is going around and around like this today is kind of fun, because we all have these little dumb things that are little triggers that are controlling us, they're the gateway, like what they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but the road to hell is also paved with little angers and little impatient things. And these are little impatient things that we're all dealing with. Dumb as the hanger on the light fixture or somebody leaving a bad review. And it's like your whole life is upside down because of the reaction to it.
When you deal with it properly, you get a relationship with the Holy Spirit and God, and that gives you confidence in your life.
It's absolutely true. It's the same way when you hate somebody for doing something unjust to you. They've just transferred into you, and you become part of the chain of hate. If you stop the hate by not resenting what they've done to you and by suffering with dignity, like, oh, well, that's a bummer. Overlooking on the spot with calmness, kindness, and patience. Sadly, we have a hard time doing that as human beings, but that's because we choose to stay in that swamp where we've lived most of our lives. I don't want to be in the swamp anymore. I don't want to be a swamp creature. It's like Trump said, drain the swamp. The more you start to try to get out of the swamp, the more of those swamp creatures that you've been living with will reach out and try and pull you back down.
I was going to say something about anger. I think anger freezes us and then doesn't let us move forward. It like locks us. It locks your mind. It locks and it's almost like it's like having a curse on you.
It stops you from looking for a solution to the problem. That's right.
So there's two things. One, the anger produces a guilt or a need for some sort of escape. And so this is like the root cause of all the addictions that you see out there. Even stuff you may not think of as addiction, like TV or more mild things. If you're hitting the same situation over and over and getting the same reaction, you're not in the right space. And so I find myself getting blindsided by situations, and just seeing that you're blindsided and appreciating the seeing it is a healing. And then you become more, like Alan says, he sees it ahead of time or closer, where it's actually easier.
So we'll end it with this. Luke 28. But to those of you who will listen, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. If someone strikes you on the cheek, turn to him the other also. And if someone takes your cloak, do not withhold your tunic as well. And I left my tunic at home today, so that's where we're going to end it. It's been a fun episode today of this Sunday conversation. I think many people who go to therapy and they pay some therapist to sit and listen to their problems would be overpaying because it's free right here at the foundation of human understanding. Thank you guys all for coming. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for your contributions. I'm Alan Masters. We'll see you next week.